Artificial intelligence is all the buzz in the business sector, but can its vines also strangle the environment? A new report should give us pause. And roofing made from dinner party waste. Would you use this shockingly good technique to keep your building cool? Plus, is the push for zero carbon emissions by 2050 feasible? Or is it a pipe dream? We'll discuss with a lead climatologist who sees it from both sides. And what is so special about this little blue marble? That answer later. Hello and welcome to the world's first show dedicated entirely to sustainability and the environment. This is EarthX News. I'm Christina Thompson. Let's get you caught up on some of the biggest headlines facing our planet. Did climate change play a major role in the extreme devastation in Libya after a deadly cyclone dumped more than 16 inches of rain onto the area in a 24-hour period? Major dams collapsed and thousands of people were killed with the flash flooding. Some experts say they suspect that warmer seawater gave the storm immense energy. However, scientists were hesitant to singularly blame climate change for the storm. One atmospheric scientist at the University of Albany saying, quote, "Factors could be at play, but it's difficult to attribute a single weather event to climate change." Now, just to name some of those factors that contributed to the catastrophe: the aging and crumbling infrastructure and inadequate warnings. East Libyan officials say at least 5,500 people were killed in the floods, though the death toll could reach as many as 20,000. Nearly a quarter of the city of Derna, home to about 90,000 people, was washed away by the flood. That's according to the Libyan government. And cleanup efforts are full force ahead in Maui. But how to accomplish this massive undertaking sustainably? One of the groups forging the way is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Environmental engineers and biologists are working with local, state, and federal agencies to remove debris from those devastating wildfires. The agency will help clean up while reducing the risks to people and the environment as the Hawaiian island recovers. And protecting the Earth comes at a cost. The startling numbers are in, and environmental activists were reportedly killed at a rate of one every other day in 2022. That's 177 people. According to the NGO Global Witness, most of these murders, about 1/5, happened in the Amazon rainforest. The report pointing to organized crime and land invaders as being behind the murders. Plus, a new bombshell report that details how artificial intelligence might not just significantly alter our society, but our Earth as well. Reportedly touted as green, scientists are now sounding the alarm that AI could contribute to the climate crisis in a massive way through emissions and vast amount of water consumption. It's because of the computer systems and server farms needed to power the AI systems. Now, even if companies put in place green initiatives, it likely won't cancel out the scale of impact on the planet. And it might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, but I promise it is real life. The Scottish government is building a giant battery in a hollowed-out mountain that will help the country reach its net zero target. The nearly $600 million project will expand a hydro storage plant in the west of the country. It works as a sort of hydroelectric energy generator. Turbines pump water from a lower pool into an upper pool to charge the battery. When electricity is needed, the water is released and hydroelectric power is generated. And the late singer-songwriter Jimmy Buffett is being remembered by environmental groups for his conservation efforts in protecting manatees, coral reefs, and lobbying efforts for the reauthorization of the Endangered Species Act. One of Buffett's most lasting efforts was his creation of the Save the Manatees Club. His committee has been educating the public about endangered manatees in the Florida waters since the 80s. And mark your calendars, because National Manatee Appreciation Day is March 27th next year. And a company in France is shucking out some groundbreaking technology. They are painting roofs with oyster shells, helping to cut down the hundreds of thousands of tons of oyster shell waste in France, and AC consumption too. Cool Roof France figured out you can replace traditional calcium in paint with calcium that naturally makes up the outside of an oyster shell. They found that oyster-enriched paint is actually far more durable than traditional paint. The oyster calcium adds a sort of crustacean power to the paint, reflecting 90% of the sun's rays away from the building and lowering the average temperature by 6 to 7 degrees, which means buildings can stay cool using 30 to 50% less energy. California lawmakers passed a new bill. It requires large companies to release their carbon emissions if they make more than $1 billion a year. It's the first of its kind and could lead to more states following suit. Supporters say the bill would allow investors and consumers to see full, transparent data on a company's emissions and compare if it aligns with their verbal environmental promises. Critics of the bill say the emissions estimates could be inaccurate and would lead to unnecessary burdens on companies. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, the Inflation Reduction Act should cut economy-wide carbon emissions by up to 43% compared to 2005 levels. The EPA just released their first report on the 2022 Climate and Infrastructure Law. The report estimates that by 2030, the carbon emissions from electricity will be 11 to 67% lower than if the act was never signed into law. And of course, right now, the climate is a big concern. Protests around the globe are ramping up, pushing messages like fossil fuels kill and declare a climate emergency. In New York City, thousands of protesters kicked off Climate Week, filling the streets of Manhattan to send a message during the UN General Assembly. They want world leaders to take notice, blaming recent wildfire devastation and powerful storms on climate change. Still, not everyone believes in the effects of climate change. Some scientists stating the alarm over climate change is sensationalized and not as pressing a threat as some environmentalists would make you believe. So what should we be thinking? Joining me now to discuss, climatologist Judy Curry. Judy, welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Judy, your work previously argued that climate change could be behind a steady increase in strengths of hurricanes through the years. But then some critics pointed out that they noticed a few holes in your research, and you actually agreed with them. Can you tell me about that?
Okay, well, we pointed out that there was a doubling of the percent of Category 4 and 5 hurricanes since 1970. And critics of our work pointed out that the data prior to 1985 was inadequate. And I have to say I agreed with them. And they also pointed out that a lot of this could be explained by natural climate variability and not just the warming trend. And I looked into that, and I would have to say they're right about that also. So this triggered a change in how I regard that whole issue.
Interesting. So some recent articles state that the global emissions reduction targets simply can't be reached on such aggressive timetables without lowering human quality of life. I'm wondering if you agree with this and if there's a way that we can lower our carbon footprint in a way that's sustainable, both for the environment and human society.
Well, my new book, Climate Uncertainty and Risk, deals explicitly with this issue. All of these targets and deadlines are basically made up political deadlines. They don't have any foundation in solid risk analysis. And, the challenge that we're facing is that we vastly oversimplified the climate change problem and its solutions. And we need a rethink here. All of these deadlines and climate alarmism are driving false solutions and stand to make us worse off than if we had just, followed a trajectory slowly, over the course of the 21st century towards cleaner, more abundant, and cheaper sources of energy. Wind and solar just aren't the solution. And the longer we go in that direction, the worse off we're going to be in the long run.
Do you think that it's possible that environmental scientists sometimes sensationalize their findings to create sort of a hysteria over climate change that gives them any sort of wealth or fame?
Well, in all honesty, it's the politicians and the media, who have overt political agendas that are driving the alarm. Yes, there are some activist climate scientists who support all that and don't speak out when they see something, really wrong. But it's really driven by politicians and the media more so than climate scientists themselves, in my opinion.
We've been seeing some pretty terrible natural disasters recently, the dam break in Libya, wildfires in Australia, California, Maui, the Pakistan mudslides. Do you think that these events are amplified because of human impact on the Earth?
We've always had bad weather, since, for the last 4.6 billion years, and certainly as long as humans have been on the planet. We're having bad weather now. We will have bad weather in the future. The challenge is to reduce our vulnerability to bad weather. I mean, the situation with Libya was well-known weaknesses and breaches in their dam system, which really caused the catastrophe. Our land use policies, many things that we're doing, we're making ourselves more vulnerable to these extreme weather events. And we need to manage that vulnerability. Even if we were successful at eliminating CO2 emissions, we're not going to get rid of bad weather. We just need to disabuse ourselves of that idea and get on with trying to better understand, improve our infrastructure, and improve our emergency management protocols in order to minimize the damage from these extreme weather events.
All right, climatologist Judith Curry, we appreciate your expertise and insight. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And coming up, what is so special about this little blue marble? The answer is next on EarthX News.
There's too much brown encroaching, and there's too much white melting. The world is fragile. And if the world were this size, the atmosphere around it would probably be about 2 molecules thick.
Let me introduce you to EarthX. It's an international nonprofit environmental organization with a mission to inspire people and organizations to take action towards a more sustainable future. In other words, they're saving the world. It was started by Tremel Crow in 2010 as Earth Day Dallas before growing exponentially into what it is today. Now, Crow recently attended Climate Week in New York City, but we were lucky enough to sit down with him for an exclusive one-on-one.
Well, when I was a kid, I learned to believe in the environment at an early age. And when I was a kid, one didn't think about having a career that did good as well as did well. The mentality was, when I reach the end of my days and retire, then I can start doing good. So environment was always the goal for me. I said, what the heck? Earth Day's in 5 months, let's just have an Earth Day. And so it turned out really to be a great move, because Earth Days aren't held so much anymore. So we've become the biggest one.
What made you fall in love with the environment, even as a kid?
Growing up in the 60s, or on the cover of Saturday Evening Post, there'd be a river on fire,
Wow.
or a forest fire, or some remarkable example of environmental injustice. And we had never seen it before. People had never been made aware of environmental degradation, of possible species endangerment. So I think it hit a lot of us.
And suddenly EarthX grew to something much bigger. What was that like? How did that growth happen?
What we have done has been more multidimensional, more inclusive, and more topics and subjects than, I believe, any other environmental event. We just don't get hung up on climate all the time.
Right.
Although we might all get hung up on climate someday. So EarthX was the only way we could try to make a symbol that could include it all. Fill in the blank.
Something that you say that I think is great is we welcome all viewpoints. You know, that dialogue is very important. I think that a lot of us have lost even just the ability to sit across from someone and talk to someone who might have a different belief from us and be able to hold any form of a civil conversation. So how do you kind of pair the two, making sure that we reach the collective goal of sustaining our environment while still listening to people who might have a whole realm of different viewpoints?
You know, different viewpoints doesn't mean for and against. And it doesn't mean necessarily denial, but to have the diversity of topic and opinion, but again, not so much for and against as how do you crack the nut? We're all heading towards the same goal.
Right.
We just don't know it yet.
And everyone's goal should be able to continue living on a planet that it's the only one we've known.
Yeah, there's only one of them.
Only one of them, which also brings me to the marble. You brought in these marbles and you gave it to us and you said there's only one of these, take care of it. How did this become your thing?
The blue marble. There's only one of them. We have it in our hand like it's something so small and insignificant and replaceable. But stop, there's only one of those. Save the world, species, ocean, soil, environment, conservation, climate is an overarching issue. Really, one of our missions is to bring people together, and environmentalists and conservationists together, politicians, private property owners, NGOs. So how can you put all that into a mission statement?
That must be tough to work with different leaders and nations across the globe.
Well, you cannot avoid the problems. The environment knows no borders, right?
Right.
It is difficult. Getting the attention of the governments is not hard. And all the little islands spread through the South Pacific, they are painfully aware of their threat. How would you like to be on a little island looking at a horizon like this, knowing that it's rising inexorably, and you're sitting there? So it doesn't matter how easy it is, it's compelling. This is the blue marble. There's more blue than there is green. There's too much brown encroaching, and there's too much white melting. The world is fragile. The atmosphere is so tiny and so precious that we must preserve it.
That message is so powerful. There is only one little blue marble in the entire universe. It's our Earth, and we only get one of them, so we need to take care of it. It's simple to state. It's harder to practice on a global scale, but that's what EarthxNews is here to help with. Coming up, a 100% green city in the middle of California. Is it possible? Tech billionaires think that they can do it. Stay with EarthxNews. We'll be right back. Silicon Valley billionaires went on an $800 million land buying spree in a small town in Northern California. And now we know why. They want to create a sort of sustainable utopia in Solano, a rural community between San Francisco and Sacramento where 450,000 people call home. The tech execs promising thousands of new homes, high-paying jobs, solar farms, and rolling fields of space. The question now is, can it be done? The executives released some details about their plans for a new green city on a website called California Forever. The project plans show this new city covering 78 square miles of farmland within Solano. But to get anywhere close to bringing to life the colorful pictures on the website, they still must win over voters and local leaders on the ballot to allow for urban uses on that land, as it's had protections in place since 1984. That's where Jan Schramek comes in, a former Goldman Sachs trader and the face of those deep pockets, who now is the largest single landholder in the country. He's already meeting with politicians that represent that area, talking up his first-string roster of Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and venture capitalists that are backing the project. The list includes philanthropists, the LinkedIn co-founder, and venture capitalists. But Solano County voters are wary of the group's intentions, especially Princess Washington, mayor pro tem of Sassoon City, a city directly near Travis Air Force Base, a city that, she says, deliberately has worked to protect that open space and keep the area around the military base free of encroachment, given how significant that base is.
The better thing would be to approach our city leaders and work with us within our city boundaries, not to create a new city. I think that endeavor is a bit self-motivated with their own end goal, which is to create a new playground for who they want there versus what the needs of our residences are and our community members.
Project developers said they will protect the military base, and farmers who want to keep farming on their parcels can do so. But she's suspicious that the group's real purpose is to create a city for the elite under the guise of more housing. You see, the investors are pushing what California desperately needs: more housing. California is in dire need of affordable homes for teachers, firefighters, service and hospital workers. But cities and counties have not been able to figure out where to build new homes. The mayor of Rio Vista, a city surrounded by the newly purchased land, says the proposed new city could solve that problem. After all, it is 60 miles northeast of San Francisco and 35 miles southwest of California's capital city of Sacramento. And Solano County homes are among the most affordable in the San Francisco Bay Area, with a median sales price of $600,000. But it would also create a new problem: congestion.
This proposal will solve some of those problems. We probably will get better medical access. We probably will get better stores. We'll get better restaurants, but we're going to get a lot more traffic. We're going to get a lot more congestion.
The current infrastructure, which largely consists of 2-lane roads, can barely support the congestion as is. Add in the thousands of proposed homes on the California Forever website, and this area would be facing a massive transportation crisis.
If it's done correctly, I think there's a lot of opportunities for the county. But again, I think you're giving up a quality of lifestyle that's kind of unique to this area. You don't really have this a whole lot of other places.
The tech execs are in the process of sending pamphlets and surveys to residents. They did not respond to our request for an interview. That's it for EarthX News. We'll see you here next week.